Hello students. This video lesson is about helping you to become great writers. Today what we'll be working on is extending our sentences by adding details. So we're going to take some sentences and we're going to take some extra detail and combine it into our sentence to make our sentences more detailed, more complex. An example here is these popcorn kernels. You may not know this, but popcorn starts out like this. It's very dull, it's boring, it's quite hard. When you stick it into your mouth, it's flavorless and it's hard to chew and eventually swallow, never mind digest. What we want to do is turn these kernels into this, something that is delicious and salty, something that tastes nice and pops in our mouth. We want to turn it into popcorn. And that's the same with our sentences. We want to turn them from this type of thing, very boring, into this type of thing, exciting with a lot of flavor. Let's see how we do that. Here's a very simple sentence. Jane ran. We want to add some details to that sentence because at the moment it's very boring. These questions here, they can help us to add detail. So we might say, when Jane ran. We might talk about where Jane ran. And we might talk about why Jane ran. Let's have a go at answering some of them now. If we start with when, we might say Jane ran late in the evening. Where did Jane run? Well, she might have done her running at her local park. And if we talk about why she ran, perhaps she ran to get fit, or maybe she was running because she wanted to come first in the school cross country. We can come up with any reasons to add some detail into this sentence. Then what we do is we write our new sentence, keeping this old part here, but adding in all of these details. We don't always have to, but when we're learning, we want to always start with the when. So we put our when in first. Late in the evening, and we might even put a comma after that, as that makes sense grammatically. Late in the evening, Jane ran at her local park because she wanted to come first in the school cross country. And don't forget your full stop. Now we can turn that around. We could say late in the evening at her local park, Jane ran because she wanted to come first in the school cross country. So you can change the order of your details. Sometimes though, when you change the order, you also need to add in certain punctuation. So I would need a comma there to say late in the evening at her park, Jane ran because she wanted to come first in the cross country. You can add the detail in any way that you feel it makes sense. But sometimes it doesn't quite make sense. So read it out loud afterwards to make sure that you've got the correct order or the best order. Let's try another one. Mike fished. First we're going to add some details. When did Mike fish? I'm going to say in the early hours of the morning. Where did Mike fish? Down by the river. And why did Mike fish? To feed his family. Remember, we always start with when we're learning. So I'm going to say, in the early hours of the morning, putting all the details together now. After my when, I put a comma. In the early hours of the morning, Mike fished down by the river to feed his family. You could have many other ways of making this sentence work. You might say, in the early hours of the morning, down by the river, Mike fished to feed his family. Can you think of any other combinations that might work? What I want us to do now is try one more, but this time you're going to give it a go. Our sentence is, the dog sat. Again, it's very simple, so we want to turn it from a kernel into some nice flavoursome popcorn. We're going to add details like when, where, and how to do that. When did the dog sit? Where did the dog sit? And how did the dog sit? How is a new type of question. We haven't seen that on the previous two examples, but it still works, and it's about telling us how that dog sat down. Did it sit down with some pain? Did it sit down obediently by following its master's commands? Did it sit down happily, peacefully? Some of the other questions you might get is not just when, where, why, or how, but sometimes you might ask a what question. For example, I ate. You might give me more detail by saying what I ate. Why don't you press pause now and have a go? Firstly, just answer these three questions. When, where, and how did the dog sit? Press pause and do that now. How did you go? Well, I might just fill in here. When did this dog sit? After dinner. Where did this dog sit? On its bed. And how did it sit? With a full belly. Now that you've got your when, where, and how, and they might be different to mine, I want you to write it in a full sentence. Remember, always start with the when. So begin by saying when your dog sat, and then put the other parts of the sentence together in any order that you think is best, and check it by reading out loud. Press pause and turn it into a sentence now. How did you go? Did you read it out loud? Did it make sense? Maybe there was a better way of ordering those details. If there was, make sure you change it to the better way. I'm going to write mine now. After dinner, the dog sat on its bed with a full belly. Or I might say, after dinner, with a full belly, the dog sat on its bed. So there are many combinations that you can arrange your sentences in. But the important thing I want you to remember from this lesson is turning our simple sentences into more detailed and complex sentences by adding details. Going from a kernel into some flavoursome popcorn, from a boring sentence into some great sentences. And hopefully, one day, we can be great writers by using this strategy to improve our sentence construction. It's time to do some practice now. But remember, this video is always here if you need to watch it again and to remember or relearn how to do this.